Hi guys, welcome to The Attic. My name's Mark Jago. I'm a philosophy professor in the UK. Today we're continuing with the Philosophy Glossary, so we're trying to make sense of all those difficult concepts and isms that you get when you study philosophy, and today we're going to be looking at physicalism. Okay, so in general, what is physicalism? It's the view that all of the phenomena that we might be interested in ultimately boils down to physical phenomena. Maybe excluding some abstract ideas like numbers and mathematical sets and things like that. Most often when we're talking about physicalism, we're in the realms of philosophy of mind. So we're thinking about what is the mind? And the physicalist answer is ultimately the mind can be explained in terms of or reduced to or boils down to physical stuff, physical phenomena. So when we're thinking about the main kind of positions in philosophy of mind, we might characterize dualism as saying there's two kinds of stuff, with physicalism, which is a kind of monism, saying there's basically only one kind of stuff, and that is physical stuff. All of the phenomena that we're looking at when we look at the mind can somehow be boiled down to the physical stuff. So physicalism is a kind of monism, one kind of stuff, and it's physical. So one way of getting a bit more precise on exactly what physicalism means, what it entails, is to talk about that dependency relationship. Okay, so we're talking about the mind boiling down to physical stuff. Well, that's just a metaphor. How can we characterize that precisely? We want to talk about a dependency relation, okay? The mind depending on physical stuff. We might not want to say that the mind is identical to a particular physical thing like the brain, okay? You might say that. That would be identity theory. The mind is identical to the brain. Mental states are identical to physical states, okay? Have a look at the video explainer on identity theory if you're not familiar with that idea. But there's ways of being a physicalist without being an identity theorist. So identity theory, it's one kind of physicalism, but it's not all of it. Physicalism is broader than that one notion. So how else could you be a physicalist? Well, it's this idea of dependence. The mind depends on the brain in some way. On the brain or on the body or on physical stuff in your environment or whatever. What kind of dependence are we talking about there? Not necessarily causal dependence. The mind causes the body to do stuff and the body causes the mind to do stuff. You might be a non-physicalist. You might be a dualist and still believe that there's causal interaction between the mind and the brain. We're talking about a certain kind of non-causal dependence. Sometimes this is called supervenience. Okay, if you haven't come across that concept before, go and look at the video explainer I did on supervenience. But basically it's the idea that the mind supervenes on the brain, and that means that there couldn't be any change in the mind, the properties the mind has, without a corresponding change in what's going on in the brain. So the mind doesn't just do its own thing, it relies on the brain or the body or whatever doing a certain thing. And that is a necessary relationship. There's a necessary dependence relation between the mind and physical stuff. That's basically the bottom line commitment for physicalism, right? To be a physicalist of any kind, you've got to say that there couldn't be any difference in the mind without a difference in the brain or the physical stuff around it, okay? The mind depends in that sense on physical stuff. Different way of putting it, any possible situation, any possible world where my body is the way it is or where the total physical world is the way it is, my mind would have to be doing exactly what my mind actually is doing. Okay, so there couldn't be any change in my mind without a change in physical stuff. That's the basic kind of baseline commitment of physicalists. Now, this isn't really a theory of the mind. It doesn't really explain what the mind is. It doesn't say how my mind depends on my brain. And there's lots of different ways of cashing that out. So one way that we just mentioned before is identity theory. Just they're identical, right? So if there's only one thing there, the mind, the brain, they're the same thing. Yep, they've got to depend because it's just one thing. But there's lots of other ways of cashing that out. So you could be a functionalist of some kind. You could be an emergent theorist of some kind. These might all be different ways of cashing out physicalism. So physicalism, it's not really a theory in the sense of something that sets out to explain what the mind is. It's just really a kind of a baseline commitment that lots of different theories have. Basically, we're saying we're setting up shop and we're saying we're going to explain the mind in terms of physical stuff, the brain and stuff like that. Okay, so there we have a super short introduction to physicalism in Philosophy of Mind. I hope you found that useful. If you did, give this video a thumbs up. That really helps me out on YouTube. If you've got any questions on this, leave me a comment down below. I'm going to try to respond to all of them. Thank you so much for watching this far. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, why not do it now? Hit the bell icon to get notifications. There's going to be plenty more Philosophy Glossary explainers coming up over this term. I hope to see you back here soon.